Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this session, Connecting People in Cities. It's very good to see there's so many people joining, actually, and still a few people joining too at this time, so that's great. By way of introduction, as people are still joining, we've got about 3/4 of an hour, and we're going to hear from two speakers this afternoon, Christina Lee and Leticia Lozano, who are great, actually. They've got some really interesting stories and some really interesting experiences to share with us. So I'm absolutely delighted to introduce them both to you. Leticia is going to start off first and do a shorter presentation, about 15 minutes or so, followed by Christine. And that should give us about 15 minutes at the end to kind of really chew over all your questions, hopefully. Please use the chat function and just really put in there kind of anything that inspires you or questions you want to pose to either Christine or to Leticia. And let's see what comes out, actually. What I'm keen to do at the end of Leticia's presentation, after about 15 minutes, is just to pause there and just perhaps have a few questions so we kind of reset our minds a bit and then go into Christine. So I think that's the way we'll do it. So if I can just then fully introduce Christine and Leticia, as I think most people probably have now joined the session. So Christine Lee, who's going to be talking to us from Taiwan, and Christine is the Taiwan Parks and Playground for Children representative here in the room. So this is very much about children and participation. And Christine will tell her own story. And then Leticia from Mexico City. So we're very international this afternoon. Taiwan, Bristol, of course, and Mexico City. And Leticia will be representing her ideas also around children's play and children engagement and societal reactions to all that. Leticia runs her own company, MACIA, Estudio, and so she will be able to reference kind of the partnership behind that. So I think that's probably enough for me. What I will do now is hand over to Leticia, who's going to first do her presentation, and like I say, we'll stop after about 15 minutes and pose a few questions and then head off to Christine's. I'll do that again. My daughter's called Christine and I keep making that mistake. It's Christine. Without further ado, Leticia, if you're happy to share your screen and then do your presentation, and I'll leave you to do that. Okay.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, everyone. Hello, welcome to the session. I'll start sharing my screen now. Hopefully that's okay for everyone. So like Richard said, I am the co-founder and director of MACIA Estudio. And I'll be talking about what we do here in Mexico City. So I always like to start with this slide as to how do we go from understanding the territory and cities at this level, and then how do we tackle this challenge? So this is Mexico City from a little bit above, and you see these rolling hills of concrete, and how do we transform that into a place of play and interaction with nature? So just a little bit of context in Mexico City, the inner Mexico City, we have up to 9 million people. A quarter of that is children. But when we talk about Mexico City, we need to understand that we talk about greater Mexico City, which is almost 21 million people, and still a quarter of that is children, which is 5 million children live in this city, in those rolling hills of concrete. And what happens in Mexico City is that depending on where you are is the type of and the kind of access you have to nature and to open space places or spaces. So for example, if you live in the Miguel Hidalgo borough, you'll have access to around 40 square meters per person of green area. But if you live in the Iztapalapa or Tláhuac area, you only have access to 6 square meters. And that does not mean that those are quality green spaces that probably refer to the little bit in between 5-lane avenues, or the bit of grass on the pavement. So this presentation is a tale about spatial justice, actually. The play challenges that we face in Mexico City are divided in 3 categories: so socio-cultural, insecurity and violence, and legislative, which have transformed our city into these spaces, into this is the narrative we're telling children in Mexico City. This is how much we care for children in this city. So we create these non-spaces that are just completely run down. No one wants to go and hang out there or play there. We put swing sets under these like electric lines in between gigantic avenues. We put barbed wire to protect children, which in reality is just this adult-centric fantasy of protection, or I might say overprotection. And then, as in many other cities in the world, we add these signs of what is forbidden. So in the one on the left, it says it is forbidden to play soccer games or football games, and it states articles and a law, and that's just really, that's a lie. Someone actually put that sign up, and with all the the logos and like governmental logos, and that is not even a real law or a real article. And then on the right hand side, we have this basketball hoop. Is only for children under 10 years old, but they are allowed to use it between 7 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. And that means when the parents are working. So probably they're not going to use it never, maybe in the weekends. So there's no surprise that we have this type of spaces. And this particular park, this particular picture is the park that it's in front of the Children's National Institute. So this is, again, this is the narrative, the visual narrative and the architectural narrative that we are putting out there for our children to read the city. This is how much we care for children, and this is the type of spaces children deserve. And that is completely wrong, of course. And to quote a little bit Christine, who I'm delighted to hear today, so what happens is that we get this canned playgrounds, and she uses this concept, and I absolutely love it, because they're the same, they are plastic, they are just put out there without an identity. And then we don't, no one is going to be able to relate to this. This only serves to the purpose of the adult transaction of yes, I am the adult that pays taxes, and you who are the adult that makes decisions with those taxes is making something for the children in the city. But this is not making something for children in cities. This is creating non-spaces that lack identity. So no wonder these spaces are usually empty and without life. And then we are spending millions of, pesos into building these non-spaces that no one is going to use, no one is going to access. So in MACIA Estudio, we believe the contemporary city has failed to be a place of meaning, identity, and play for everyone. The imposition of the car-centered city model has consolidated and replicated the adult-centered perspective of overprotection, excluding children and other population sectors from cities. So we believe that running an architecture studio in this context, an architecture studio dedicated to create play and child-friendly cities, becomes a political statement. And by designing spaces through participatory design processes with children, we are doing a protest. So this is the way we protest. So MACIA Studio is a transdisciplinary practice. We want to challenge the boundaries between architecture, experience design, and applied research. So we are we're very passionate and we're very keen into changing one space after the other, and one at a time and one community at a time. So we design spaces, experiences, and we do tons of research as well to back our projects, but also to be able to spread the word about creating more child-friendly cities and design through participatory methodologies. So I'm going to tell you some of the projects that we've been doing. So this is called Urban Toys. This was done a couple of years ago, or more years ago, and this was about reactivating underused spaces that were in proximity of high densities of children population. So these three spaces had a particular challenges, but the main challenge was that children were not playing there, that the spaces were not serving the playful, were not giving the playful service to the community. So we started to just kind of go to the spaces, read the spaces, and play with children. For us, playing in space with children means that we are able to observe how they interact with the physicality of the spaces, and from that we can tell a lot of what they want to change, because you start to see what spaces, what areas that they avoid, like they will tell you all about the space, even if they're not there all the time. They're like, you know, they're very observers. And then we start to understand how they navigate around those spaces. If they, you know, if they walk to school, if they go with the parents, if they play with the cousins, or how do they navigate the city that it's near to them, the environment that it's near to them. And then we start to create this type of, well, temporary interventions really into giving them a way of having agency on that environment that it's near to them. And then we transform that into design guidelines with children for these three spaces, and we launched a public competition for architects and urbanists to propose different ways of addressing those challenges and those design guidelines. So I will have these three spaces, but the whole point of doing these temporary interventions was to develop an impact assessment on how play and playful methodologies have a way of changing the spaces. So in this case, general activity increased by 19%, and play activity increased by 10%. So this was, to be honest, this is the most beautiful intervention, but this was the less impactful. Well, the Wild Thing Star was part of that, and this was about opening a space that was completely closed from the beginning, and now it's open in the afternoons. A school nearby uses it as a playground in the mornings, and it's used for a summer camp. Children started an urban farm, and a local group started a Temazcal, which is like kind of a sauna, a pre-Hispanic sauna type of thing here in Mexico. And this one was one of the most successful. In this one, so the play activity increased by 300%, and the child population doubled. And this space, when we started interacting with this space, it was empty by 6 o'clock. After the intervention, it was alive up until midnight. Even when this space is in a quite a really rough part of the city. So it was about understanding how can we integrate different types of people in the space? How can we share space? So from a play perspective, we can share a space, we can invite other people. And this picture is very important because that particular girl, one time the ropes, those yellow ropes that you're seeing on screen, they broke, and she organized the parents and other children, and they bought ropes and they switched them, and they started to hack the urban toy. And for us, that it's just fantastic, because then that tells us that they are caring for this space. So how do we transform these spaces from having, you know, little activity to changing that, to play more, to see more interactions, to people spending more time here?
Just 3 minutes. Just 3 minutes on this.
Yes. And then this is about the type of the methodologies that we do. So we just do workshops with children, and then we let them create with their imagination. We give them materials to just change, like I said, the environment that it's next to them, and then we switch into the architectural methodology that we are more used to, and then we just how does this evolve? And then how do they become the architects of the space, and how do they take pride in how they changed this space? Oh, sorry, this is in Spanish. And then how do we see this area that was before it was a void change into an area that starts to invite people to be there? We just won the Play City Challenge for that project. And then just to finish, how do we change the perception of a nature space that once was a place to just dump everything, actually, into participatory methodology, transform it to create play spaces, nature play spaces? How do we bring children and the community into the construction of those spaces? And we basically cleaned this whole canyon, which was a dump site before. And this was just about our research. How do we do collective research? We always have our group of children to help us. And then how do we create these tools to design play spaces in Mexico City? And I think I'm just going to stop there, because if not, then I'll go over time. But happy to receive the questions.
Okay, great. Leticia, that was fantastic. Really, I mean, great, really inspiring, actually. I've just been looking through the chat as you've been speaking, and a lot of people are saying the same, that it's great stuff. It's inspiring, and actually, a lot of people are saying they can see this at home too. You know, we have signs that say no ball games. I think this is international. It just seems to be what adults do. I don't quite know why. And maybe you could say a little bit more about that. But a couple of questions that came out in the chat was, I guess you're going to face the reality of how do you get the status quo, the authorities to accept this way of working. It's different. Participatory approaches are not entirely mainstream, are they? So how have you managed to influence and work with and get that success with the local authority, say, or the city council, or whoever it is that may be in charge of the playgrounds?
To be honest, Richard, I think I've tried from every perspective. So I was a public servant for 4 years before starting MACIA Estudio. So I've tried from NGOs, I've tried from within government, I'm trying from private sector. So I think it's just about, so my conclusion is that it's about working with the community, and one community at a time. I think if we wait for the status quo to change, or for politicians or decision makers to want to change that, we're just going to keep on waiting. So that's why we focus on the work in the territory, because if you change people's mindsets, like communities' mindsets, then they will help you in the process of changing the status quo instead of the other way. So we try to start from kind of a grassroots perspective, okay. I guess.
That's great. I get that, actually. I think that's a very sensible approach, actually. So I think what we'll do is we'll pause there, and then we'll introduce Christine, who can talk about her experience from Taiwan. I mean, the subject matter is similar. We're talking about play, children, and ultimately how we all work together as adults and children. We're all people, let's not forget that. So Christine, if you can give your perspective, that would be great. And then we're getting really quite a lot of really good questions coming through. So we'll have some time then at the end to kind of bring you both in and then put those to you. So I'll dip out. Do you want me to give you a little reminder on time-wise, or are you okay? We'll give 15 minutes for this section, Christine.
Yes,
so
please.
Right, I'll give you a little reminder.
Okay.
Smashing. Over to you, Christine.
Okay.
Thanks, Leticia, and see you in 15 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Richard, and thank you everybody for joining in. And I wish we had Leticia, the architect in our country too. Let me share my screen here, the whole screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, it's fine.
Yes, okay. What I'm sharing today is how Taiwan PFC, that's Parks and Playgrounds for Children by Children, that's the name of our group, connects people in cities in Taiwan with play, from parks and playgrounds to street play to playable child-friendly cities. And this is very, very similar to what Mexico. This is 5 years ago in Taiwan, and you can see canned food playgrounds everywhere in Taiwan. We call it in our own local languages, and that's cookie cutter playgrounds or KFC playgrounds, as you call it in the UK, and MACD playgrounds, as they call it in the USA. And this is like you copy and paste playgrounds everywhere in Taiwan, and we call ourselves angry mothers at the beginning of the revolution. We angry mothers didn't really like this because this is not good for our children. And we can also see ridiculous playgrounds that doesn't make any sense at all. You can see swings, which is on the ground, and you can see monkey bars where children can not really reach, or slides with the metal balls embedded. We don't know why. This is really confusing. And so we, activist moms, we built our self-help group because the government's not helping us and the community is not helping us. They don't think children are important in our society. And every one of us, there's 20 of us at the moment. And every one of us had our own story. And my story is I take my child, which is my first child, to parks almost every day. I went to Bristol Uni, so I see differences. Our family, we travel to places to do business, so I take my children with me, and we see huge differences. I can see my child enjoying playgrounds everywhere else in the world, but not in Taiwan. So we kind of got irritated by the government that they are not treating our children well. And we see this is a very common situation globally. Tim Gill, which is the play expert based in the UK, he kind of reminded us that risky play is very important for child development. And we see very common situation here in Taiwan too. Children, they don't have time to play. They don't have space, quality space to play. They don't have play companions, and there's no play expertise in our society. So we, a group of children, a group of angry mothers, we promote children's right to play and right to participation. And we, within 5 years, that is 2015 till now, we had 4 municipal conferences promoting natural play, inclusive play, or diverse of spaces. And we kind of made it street play policies or participation for children policies for 4 cities in Taiwan. And we joined all kinds of fair booths to promote the right to play and right to participation ideas. And we had so far, within 2 years, 10 street play events here in Taiwan. And we have 15 topical virtual work groups. When we want to talk about some topics, we just jump in the virtual work group and talk about the issues and how we meet with people and persuade them with the importance of play. And within the 5 years, there's more than 100 parks and playgrounds refurbished or newly built because of our influence. And we had 200 advocate talks, and nearly 3,000 design meetings island-wide for Taiwan children. And this is our very influential fan page. We've got 50,000 followers, mostly parents, very eager parents, because they don't want their children to be mistreated by the government. And we send social media messages like, good morning, grandfather or grandmother, playing sand with water is very important for your grandchildren's brand. And this is not very common in our culture because we don't see play as very important. We see education, learning, or money as very important. So this is really radical. And within 5 years, there's a huge improvement of play deprivation, and we can see diverse of play spaces in Taiwan now, and we can see new playgrounds crowded with people during weekends and holidays, and this is crazy. And we had our first 2-year-long experimental project for children to participate from the beginning till the end thoroughly. They draw, they make dolls, they play with all kinds of children with all abilities, and they design their own playground models. They even made their own engineering during the infrastructure of the playground. And this is the Huashan Grassland Playground inaugurated last year. And we call this revolution as play acupuncture in Taiwan, because we place all kinds of places in Taiwan so that they can make changes and people can really see children playing everywhere here in Taiwan. But this is not enough for us. We want more. We want the whole city to be playground for our children. So we move from parks and playgrounds to roads and streets. So we see the model of playing out. And I actually flew back to Bristol to meet Alice Ferguson, which is our goddess. And we had our own street play, and there's the logo for our street play here in Taiwan, and we crowdfunded, and we got 1 million or more than 1 million for us to do 3 street plays, model street plays, for everybody to see that what street play is. And you can see from the top right, the lady in the middle playing bubbles. She is the president of our country, and she even supported this idea very much. And this is a little video that we use for our crowdfunding. Okay, because we want to change the culture of using 3 Cs, the iPhones or laptops or iPads in our society, because that's too much for our children. It's not good for their health. And we want them to actually play in public spaces. And this is one of the project leader, Ariel. And she's telling people that play is really important for our children in the urban area. And for these 3 crowd-funded street plays, children are actually visible in the public spaces, and we can even see intergenerational play, which is not very visible in the past, but now you can see adults playing with children or senior citizens playing with their grandchildren. And we use global media attention to help us to promote our idea of child-friendly cities. And there's the Canadian TV show interviewing us for these experimental playgrounds done by Children for Children. And there's the BBC radio interview talking about how we transform playing out mode into Taiwanese street play mode. And I to this child-friendly city conference in Bristol last year, and I had a lot of food for thought, and I met Leticia, the very important architect. And we kind of connect everybody in our country, telling them that you are a very important person to a child. And once you change, the child's life change because of you. And we think that we are doing quite well until the COVID-19 here. So within 2020, there's a lot of hectic and panic in our country. But luckily, we're being really lucky that our government learned the lesson from SARS from 2002 and 2003. So we had rapid responding civil government collaborated pandemic prevention like border control, or the 2 weeks isolation with effective monitoring or testing or tracing. And we kind of manufacture face masks for everybody, especially children, to protect themselves from each other. And a lot of things are going on. We delay the school day for 2 weeks so that we can actually manufacture sufficient face masks for children to protect themselves, so they don't stop schooling. They can still connect with each other. They can still play. They can still go to playgrounds and parks. And that's the current situation here in Taiwan. Okay. And the expert actually said that there's no need for lockdown in Taiwan, and we are really safe here in Taiwan. So children can actually continue going to school and continue going to natural spaces or play spaces in the urban areas. And for us to continue the play for prevention of the pandemic outbreak, we do songs and dances of washing hands properly, or we do storybooks telling kids to wear their face masks. And there's a very interesting project here in Taiwan. The school kids actually made their own alcohol dispenser, and here's the video. They do it with Lego, sorry. They do it with Lego blocks.
这一次我们的酒精消毒机器人主要是利用乐高的积木程式，利用马达来带动超音波，超音波感应部手部以后，然后它会喷出酒精为我们做消毒。
Okay, and that's very interesting for us to see too. And I think this is all thanks to the rapid responding pandemic prevention actions from the government. And we angry mothers couldn't do anything for the transmission, to stop the transmission, but the government did a good thing for us to be safe. So we thank very much for the most adults who have been willing to sacrifice their freedom in normal times to exchange children's freedom to play and to go to school at this critical COVID-19 period of time. So children in Taiwan can still play. So we seized the chance to promote the play very, very eagerly, that a lot of ideas like play can improve children's health, or play can improve children's development or their social interaction. And we still inaugurate a lot of playgrounds and parks. And we still do a lot of participatory workshops to do more designed playgrounds and parks. And we had our adventure playground design and build it yourself workshops so that they can go outdoor and enjoy the nature and do some creative exercises. And we can see during this year, there's a lot of nature-focused physical distancing activities done by the families. Families are more willing to take children to the nature instead of staying at home. And so we kind of show the importance of natural play, the ideas of natural play to the urban families. And we even had workshops on river revolution, or river and natural play, and or even zoos, workshops on zoos and how to incorporate play into zoos. And there's very precious awakening moment for us during the COVID-19 time, that people are more eager to go out and they are more eager to see play as the important element for their children's health, and vitamin nature is very important for their children's health. And the Ministry of Education, which is very conservative in our country, they started to recommend more outdoor play for families. And we saw more urgent need of natural play spaces to city governments or local government during this COVID-19 time. And we still had our street play events supported by the Presidential Office and the Department of Education and the Department of Sports. And this is the community-supported street play held in New Taipei City with 3,000 children playing on the street. And we are publishing a new book incorporating all kinds of ideas we want to sell to our society. And this is the Christmas present we want to send to our children during this very difficult COVID-19 time. And we are really eager mothers. Now we are not angry anymore because we've done so much and the government is willing to do so much, and the designers and architects are improving very much. So we are really eager that we can, during this time of isolation, provide as much as the children need, because the children cannot wait. Right now, it's a time for their bones to being formed and their blood being made and their senses being developed. So they cannot wait until tomorrow. Their name is today. So we, as a group of eager mothers, we want to raise our children to the right to play and to the right to participation. So we want the global society to include us, and we want you to join us, and we want you to benefit from the talk too. Thank you very much.
Christine, that was fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you to both of you. Actually, they were both really inspiring and heartfelt, and you can just see in the imagery and in your experiences that you are. So well done. I think that's great. Just share with you a few comments in the chat. Actually, people have been really positive. So there was a few wows. Wow, that's good. Go angry mums. Although Christine, you say you're no longer angry, so you've obviously found your energies to go elsewhere. Well done. People power in action. Love it. That's a very nice comment. And I guess what just fantastic results. So images speak for themselves, and evidently children in both Taiwan and Mexico City are in good hands. So there's been some good questions coming through too. We've got just over sort of 5 minutes, 5-7 minutes. So there's not a great deal of time, so I'll have to be a little bit selective, guys, in terms of who's asking questions, I'm afraid. So if I can just pick out a few and perhaps present those to you, both Christine and Leticia. There was a few questions about who's getting involved in terms of society. You've got have you got under or over representation, if you want to express it in those ways, in terms of different types of groups of people that are getting involved in the play that you're creating, or indeed are even getting involved in the participate element? How are you capturing kind of the diversity of your population in the way that you're approaching involving people in it? Can either of you say something about that? Maybe Leticia first and then Christine.
Okay. We involve people.
Yeah.
We need another session for that.
I know. Just a minute.
We always try to find the the communities that are basically vulnerable communities within the city, and then just do a territory outreach. But then we make sure that we know before we even step on territory if there are like neighborly groups, if there are political restrictions, political powers. We always try to address the local government. So we do create a network before we even step on territory.
Okay. Yeah, that's key, isn't it? You've got to know who's there and in fact who you need to be talking with and all that. Christine, what do you think from your experience in Taiwan?
We use the anger from parents mostly at the beginning of our movement, because the government wants votes. The politicians, they want votes from the parents, and the children, they don't have the right to vote, but the parents do. So we want every one of the parenting groups to call the government. There's the direct line 1999. Once you call 1999, you go to the government directly, and you can ask them to do participatory workshops. And we, apart from including parents, we connect with scholars. We want them to do a lot of local discourses, because we include a lot of international discourses, a lot of translation from articles or academic research from elsewhere, but we don't have our local say. So we connect with scholars, and we visit designers or architects, very passionate architects like Leticia, and they help us a lot. So we are trying our best to tell everybody that this is something important happening in Taiwan, and you are part of this. Once you are part of this, you are making a change for your own country. So it's a kind of how you adjust the story for your specific audience, targeted audience.
Okay, that's great. It's a really good question. It's a simple question. What do you think are the biggest barriers to change attitudes? What is it what are you doing that we need to be doing that's changing attitudes? And is it doing what you want it to do? How are you getting that? Christine, and then Leticia.
Okay. The biggest barrier for us in Taiwan is actually the very local community leader. And the very local community leaders, they are mostly seniors. And as everybody knows, that we were a country of dictative. What is the term for dictatorship?
I think we know what you mean.
Yeah. And we've got the local community leaders as the voting power. They can actually make everybody to vote for somebody, and they still have the power, and they don't care about children because children don't have the vote. So that's the biggest barrier for us to change the attitude or to change the environment. So we've from 2015 to 2020, we changed a lot how we communicate with the local community leaders, because there are mostly senior citizens, so they are quite away from childhood. So it's important for us to remind them of their childhood and remind them how important childhood is. If children in their communities can really enjoy it, and their parents can actually vote for them. So this is quite political for us, actually.
So you need to bring out the inner child. Leticia, Leticia, your experience in terms of that question around how do you...
I think I would echo what Christine is saying. We always try to have a moment with meetings or anything just to make people play, and to remind that freedom and what that means, and why have we switched our minds into not wanting to have that through the urban realm, and why are we not making decisions into that? And it's just about changing perspectives for us, which is why we like to, as I said, we work in territory with communities, and it's about kind of leading by example instead of just praise, talking about it, which is great. But then if someone is close to that talk or to have that dialogue, then it's better if they experience it physically, and if their body remembers how it feels to be just kind of a little bit free and a little bit playful and a little bit silly out there. And why wouldn't we want to experience that every day throughout the city? So,
well said, actually. So we are coming actually towards the end of our session. Time goes quickly. I think we're due to finish around about now. So we haven't managed to get all the questions answered, but I'm sure there'll be record kept of them, and maybe there's an opportunity, if you can, to just create a few lines in response, and we can share that with whomever was asking. I just want to say thank you very much. It's been a pleasure and a privilege actually to be able to just lightly chair the session and to listen to both of you as impassioned leaders in your own rights. And I know that you talk to each other and share things with others too. And there's been a few requests actually in this list of questions to perhaps speak to others, so you'll no doubt be on the circuit. So well done. Thank you very much for what you've been able to share with us.